The hunchies do. Look out. Deep center field. Going back, Bianco. Goodbye home run.
I loved covering college sports, whether it was like, there's this university in Salem called Corbin. I also covered Willamette University, Western Oregon, so anytime I got to cover them was fun. One of my favorite events that I got to cover was actually a regional here at PK Park, the year that we lost to LSU. So I was over in the press box, never thinking that I'd be just on the other side working suites like 2 years later, so it's pretty wild. My name is Luis Ramirez, and I am from Nyssa, Oregon. So I currently work for the Duck Athletic Fund at the University of Oregon Athletic Department, and in my role, I work with our donors in a variety of different areas. So I pretty much work with every single sport, football, basketball, men's and women's, baseball, and our whole goal is to help fundraise money for facilities, student athlete scholarships, and all the cool little bells and whistles that you kind of see all over the place. So I come from a very small town, Eastern Oregon. It's a farming community. It's right on the border of Oregon and Idaho. So most folks that come there are migrant workers. So my family is originally from small town Jalisco, which is in central Mexico. And so they immigrated here pretty much to have a better life. So they times were tough in Mexico, and that, I mean, it still is tough right now. So just not a lot of money down there. So the fact for them is that they wanted to come here and just kind of create a better life. The Mercado program is a program where the country of the United States and Mexico, they had an agreement to bring in farm workers from Mexico into the United States to work a variety of different farm labor, different areas of the country. So my grandpa came over here first with that program, and he signed up quickly. It was an opportunity for him to come into this country and get to learn and do something to help support his family back in Mexico. And so he would work the different fields, and essentially what he would do is he would save up enough money to buy himself a pair of jeans, which was, that was like his trait. He would send most money back home, but when he would buy a pair of Levi's, that was like his, the jean of his choice. That's when he knew that he was like, I gotta buy something for myself. The pair of jeans is what he was excited to have himself. And then when my dad turned 17, that's when he first immigrated to the United States. So my grandpa, again, he had lived in various different areas, and we had family that had settled down in Eastern Oregon to work different land there. It's very fruitful land for onions and potatoes, and so there's lots of different crops that grow out in that part of the country, in that part of Oregon, Idaho border area. So there was a lot of jobs pretty much almost year round, and when they weren't working there was an area that helped with the corn, so there was always something going on. So my dad that was where he was first intending to go, and was to Eastern Oregon into Nyssa, and then that's kind of where things evolved from there. Mexico's a big soccer country, love soccer, but my dad also actually played baseball, almost in the minor league system over in Mexico, so he was a catcher. So he also taught me baseball and how much he loved that sport. That's where I really got into sports, is I loved just sitting on a Sunday, watching games with him in Spanish, and we just watch a couple games, and then we'd go out and play. Either I'd go watch him play. He'd played in the league there in Eastern Oregon, Western Idaho. And so I'd go watch him and go play with some of the other little kids, and that was kind of my first introduction to sport. When I realized that I wasn't as good athletically in some of those sports, I was like, well, maybe I can try to do something different that gets me still involved in athletics. So that's when I just started writing, and then I ended up taking a journalism class, and I loved it. So that's kind of what pushed me towards being a journalist, a sports writer. And so then by the time I got to high school, I was like, oh, man, I really want to go to college to be a sports writer. Again, nobody in my family had ever gone to college, really, besides my sister going to community college. So, and nobody had ever left home. Like, my sisters lived in that same area. In fact, she was still living with my parents when I left college. So, yeah, it was like nobody knew what to talk about and what to do. So I had to go to counselors, and I had to talk to people and be like, hey, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to go. And so they kind of helped me. And then I just did a lot of research on my own. But yeah, sports is kind of where I wanted to go. And sports writing was originally my first dream, my first goal. So I was pretty proud to help represent my family and my culture, and again, in my area that I grew up in. Again, not many people from my area, my hometown, go to school. A lot of them didn't even graduate high school. So it's there's lots of different routes I could have went. There was a lot of different gangs in town where people, when growing up, my friends that were my friends as kids, they ended up choosing a different path. I chose this way, they chose this way, and some of them aren't even here with us. So the J school, very difficult. And I'd heard once I got here, they're like, we're weeding out people that are meant to be journalists. So very difficult classes. So one of the classes, so they had some prerequisite classes. You essentially had to take pass a grammar test. And you only had 2 opportunities to take that test. If you didn't get that B- or above on either of those tests, then you failed the class and you wouldn't be able to be a journalism major. So that was the first step. And then there was a few other classes that just kind of were intro to journalism school, so that you can kind of truly get to know, what is journalism, what is mass communication. Eventually there was a class called information gathering, which we all knew as info hell. So it was a class where you had to do a research project, and your project had to be over 100 pages long. And this is, again, just a prerequisite to get into the journalism school. And you had to get I think a C+ and above just to pass that class. So I was like, man, how am I going to write a 100-page paper? Man, I've never written more than like 10 pages in my life. So you essentially have to pick the topic on your own. You do the whole research project. So my topic was on food safety in the United States. And essentially what I had to do was I had to go get all my sources. I was calling people from Washington, D.C., I had no idea about food safety. I just was like, I got to find something. And this seemed like I could find a lot, and I could write a lot about it. So once we had to find 35 sources, internet, again, calling people, doing face-to-face interviews. And eventually, the project wrote itself. It was like clockwork. I thought originally I'd want to work as a sports information director. They help keep stats up to date. They write press releases on the team. Post-game, they'll essentially interview you guys too and write, a little piece to put on the website. They'll work on the website. So they do all that. And I was like, oh, that's right up my alley. I love stats. I love to write. I love sports. I love getting to talk to people. But then I had saw this position open up in the Duck Athletic Fund, and my friend's brother was an athletic director at the time for USC, and so he was in this field, so he was in fundraising field. So I was like, oh, let me pick his brain a little bit. So I had my friend, who's one of my best friends, tell me, get me in contact with his brother. And so his brother, we had like a little interview, and he told me all about kind of what he does and why he loved it so much. Like, he's like, this is the most fun you'll ever have in an athletic department. It's what we do. So we work essentially with everybody. This is what he had told me. And so I was like, oh, that's cool. It sounds fun. So then I interviewed, ended up getting the job, and then pretty much hit the ground running, started working with different organizations, some clubs that help fundraise for us, started getting to know some of the coaches, starting to work with them, working with just a regular season ticket holder that maybe is interested in upgrading or maybe doing different seats. So yeah, we were doing everything at that point, working different events, fundraising events, doing different activities for the donors where maybe we're doing auction items, like when I'm taking somebody down for batting practice and they can kind of meet the coaches and see the players and see kind of first a little inside access into how maybe the baseball team works, or how the football team, like you get to hang out on the sideline before a game, or you get to run out with the team as they're coming out of the tunnel. Like all those kind of things is what my department does. So I think that my transition has been great working in athletics now, and I've been here about 2.5 years now. And again, I've worked with baseball pretty much the entire time, every season. Worked here in the suites or worked with the coaches in some capacity and the players, so it's been cool. Yeah, I think I want to keep hopefully moving up within my own department and getting more responsibility, where I'm working with maybe some even bigger donors and doing more fundraising, working on maybe naming projects for entire facilities. I think, and then naming opportunities are going to be everywhere. So just like this area, we've got naming opportunities in the different sections that people can have too. So selling all that, maybe eventually getting upgrades where we can have maybe something in the outfield once we continue to, as baseball popularity keeps going up and up, maybe we'll get even more fans out here. I think that'll be kind of my future, is to help integrate more fans, players, coaches, donors, staff. So.